There are places in China that seem to exist beyond the limits of the world we know. Temples balance on cliffs where no structure should survive. Villages once relied on wooden ladders hanging above open voids. Ancient cities sleep beneath dark water, while deserts shimmer with lakes of impossible color, and springs shaped like giant eyes staring back at the sky. Some of these places were carved slowly by wind, water, pressure, and time. Others were built by people who looked at an unforgiving landscape and refused to accept the word impossible. Here, mountains become sanctuaries, cliffs become roads, stone becomes memory, and survival often depends on learning how to live with danger rather than escaping it. These are not ordinary destinations. They are places where nature and human ambition collide, challenge one another, and create something that feels almost unreal. Join us as we travel across China to uncover landscapes, temples, villages, and forgotten worlds that prove reality can be stranger, harsher, and more cinematic than anything imagination could invent. Above a white ocean of clouds, a golden temple appears, then disappears behind the mist. Clouds sweep across the tiled roofs like waves, swallowing the summit before sunlight draws it back into view. This is Laojun Mountain, one of China's most sacred peaks, where stone stairways rise toward temples that seem suspended between earth and heaven. In winter, snow seals the ridges in silence, covering the mountain in white while the golden roofs burn against the cold. After dark, the entire complex glows through the fog like an island of light floating above the world. But reaching it means leaving the ordinary landscape behind. Thousands of stone steps climb along exposed slopes, each one carrying you higher as the valleys sink farther below. Wind moves through the railings. Clouds close around the path. The mountain slowly erases everything beneath you. And when the final temple emerges through the mist, the question is no longer how people built it here. It is whether you have reached the summit of a mountain or crossed into a legend that never truly disappeared. Beyond Laojun's cloud-wrapped halls, an even stranger sight waits on Tayun Mountain. Guanyin Hall stands on a sliver of rock so narrow that its roof seems wider than the ground beneath it. From above, there is almost nothing around the temple but vertical stone, rolling clouds, and open air. Human figures shrink to specks, and a single careless step could turn stillness into terror. Built as part of a Taoist complex, the hall rests on supports anchored into cracks in the peak, with 3 sides facing the abyss. Pilgrims climb steep stone steps into a chamber barely large enough to hold them. Perhaps it was not built to escape the earth, but to discover how close faith could come to the sky. From the lonely summit of Guanyin Temple, the journey descends, only to meet another sanctuary suspended above the earth. Maijishan rises from the forest like a giant stone hive, its sandstone cliff pierced by caves, shrines, and thousands of Buddhist figures. From below, the mountain feels silent yet watchful, as though it has been guarding the valley for more than 1,000 years. Work began in the 4th century, and many statues still retain delicate faces and gestures despite centuries of wind, snow, and upheaval. To reach them, visitors cross narrow walkways fastened directly to the cliff, while staircases climb through open air and the forest falls away beneath their feet. In winter, snow muffles every sound until each step feels suspended between the present and the ancient world. Maijishan is more than stone shaped by human hands. It is devotion refusing to let go of the mountain. As Maijishan fades behind the ridges, Guizhou opens into a stranger puzzle. Hundreds of mountains rise with such symmetry that they resemble pyramids arranged by an unseen civilization. Their sharp profiles look deliberate, almost engineered. Yet the answer lies in layers of rock shaped by tectonic pressure, rain, wind, and erosion over immense spans of time. From above, the peaks repeat toward the horizon like monuments from a forgotten empire. Below them, farmers work quiet fields, and villages follow ordinary roads. The mystery is not whether nature built these pyramids, but how convincingly it learned to imitate intention. After cliffs and impossible geometry, Kanas Lake draws the journey into silence. Its blue-green water winds through forests and mountains like a ribbon of glass, reflecting clouds until sky and lake become difficult to separate. In autumn, gold trees burn across the surface. In winter, snow buries the valleys while the current keeps moving through the white stillness. Horses cross the frozen landscape, and small villages seem cut off from modern time. Kanas does not overwhelm through danger or scale. It works through mist, reflection, and the slow rhythm of water. Not every extraordinary place needs to shout. Some become quiet enough to make you forget the real world is still there. The deep blue stillness of Kanas gives way to a sudden flood of red. Across a remote valley on the Tibetan plateau, tens of thousands of wooden homes climb the mountainsides in tight, unbroken layers, spreading like a tide of flame beneath the open sky. As darkness falls, countless windows begin to glow. The valley transforms into a vast field of light, while temples crowned in gold rise above the red rooftops like islands in a burning sea. Narrow lanes twist between the houses. Monks and nuns move quietly through the cold, and pilgrims turn prayer wheels, sending whispered hopes into the thin highland air. Winter makes the scene even more powerful. Snow settles across the roofs, sharpening the contrast between white mountains and crimson walls. On frozen ground, worshippers continue their rituals, lowering themselves again and again in full prostration despite the bitter cold. At dawn, the lights fade and the valley becomes still. Larung Gar feels less like a settlement built on a mountain and more like an entire landscape, breathing to the rhythm of faith. When Larung Gar's red rooftops disappear behind the mountains, the grasslands of Gansu reveal a forgotten geometry. An 8-sided fortress rises from the green like the mark of a civilization nearly erased from memory. Inside, earthen homes and narrow lanes reflect the meeting of Han Chinese and Tibetan cultures, while old tree roots push through cracked brick as nature slowly enters the ruins. The walls are built not from cut stone but from rammed earth, sand, gravel and compressed branches. Fragile materials, hardened by time. Ganjia remains like a memory that refuses to disappear, waiting for the world to remember its name. Beyond Ganjia, the story enters the Daliang Mountains, where Atule'er was once connected to the outside world by a vertical cliff. The Yi village clings to a mountaintop, isolated enough to escape old conflicts, but trapped behind a deadly route. For generations, residents climbed handmade ladders of wood and rope. No guardrails, no harnesses. One rotten rung or misplaced foot could end at the bottom of the ravine. Children used the route to reach school. Adults carried food against the rock face. In 2016, steel stairs replaced the old ladders, but the abyss remained. From above, the staircase still looks like a thread stitched to the mountain. Here, courage was once the only way home. Thousands of flooded fields curve down the slopes like sleeping waves, catching dawn in shades of blue, gold, amber, and red. These are more than rice fields. They are a living system shaped by the Hani people over centuries. Water travels from forests high in the Ailuogou Mountains through villages and channels, then into each terrace below. But the balance is fragile. Every earthen wall must hold, every channel must flow, and the forests must remain alive. In the mist, a lone farmer walks between mirrored fields, small against the valley, yet part of the reason the mountain still holds the sky. Across the arid basin of Dakaidan, pools of turquoise, cobalt, deep green, and near black water glow against white salt and winter snow. Some are so clear that pale sand and mineral layers remain visible beneath the surface. Others ignite in morning light like gemstones waking in the desert. These pools formed in a former mining area where differences in depth, size, and mineral concentration cause each body of water to reflect light differently. A red truck or narrow road crossing the landscape only makes it feel more unreal. Jade Lake is not simply a place to look at, it feels like a question written across the earth in colour. As night settles between the cliffs, Wangxiangu begins to glow. Wooden houses cling to the rock face in rising layers, red lanterns burn beside waterfalls, and a temple watches over the river, twisting through the gorge below. Rain transforms the valley. Light spills across wet rooftops, stone paths, and rushing water until the entire settlement seems to float inside a moving reflection. Instead of forcing the mountain to change, builders followed its steep contours, placing homes and walkways along the natural levels of the cliffs. The result feels less like a village built on stone and more like a world growing directly from it. Yet the more enchanting Wangxiangu becomes, the more fragile it appears. For a moment, you may believe you have entered a realm meant only for legends. Fog can swallow rooftops, bridges, and waterfalls within seconds, leaving only scattered light suspended in the darkness. Then the mist moves, and the whole valley seems ready to disappear with it. Yuanyang's reflections fade into mist, and Shanrendong emerges like an old folktale. A wide lotus lake lies beneath limestone peaks, while traditional rooftops seem to float between green water and stone. Home to a Sani Yi community, the village rests within a karst landscape shaped by dissolving limestone, hidden caves, wetlands, and isolated hills. Beneath that calm, water has hollowed the mountains into darkness. Perhaps immortals never lived here. The place simply makes ordinary life feel far enough away that people want to believe they did. Xianrendong's quiet dream does not fade. It deepens into something brighter and more unreal. From above, glassy water surrounds forested islands while bridges and boats cross the surface in silence. Yet the lake's greatest story lies below. In 1959, the Xinan River Dam flooded the valley and submerged Shicheng, the ancient lion city, along with streets, gates, and homes. The lake now carries two landscapes at once: green islands and open sky above, stone architecture locked in cold darkness below. The calmer the sunset becomes, the harder it is to forget what rests beneath the boats. Here, water does more than reflect the world. It preserves everything the surface has erased. In Mangya's red-orange desert, a green pupil sits inside rings of rust, yellow, and brown. At its center, water churns upward before spilling through thin mineral channels, making the eye seem alive. The spring is rich in minerals, and years of sulfur deposits have stained the earth into the dark bands that created its unsettling shape. Around it, the desert is almost silent. At the center, the ground never stops moving. Nature here is not simply something you observe. It seems to stare back, unblinking, patient, and impossible to fully trust. If Aiken Spring is an eye-opening in the desert, Hua Shan feels like the dead world behind it. Black ridges rise above pale salt flats, creating a landscape so empty that Earth itself begins to feel distant. Dark gravel, white ground, and sharp peaks form an ink painting stretched across another planet. The terrain was shaped by uplift, weathering, and relentless wind erosion, which exposed and darkened the rock over immense spans of time. At sunrise, cold light moves across the ridges and the silence becomes almost physical. It is a place that makes human life feel temporary. After Hua Shan's black silence, Zhangye Danxia erupts with colour. From above, the mountains rise like frozen waves, striped in crimson, orange, gold, green, white, and grey. The bands are so vivid that the formations look painted rather than geological. Yet the colours are real, created by layers of sandstone, sediment, and minerals, then lifted, folded, and carved by tectonic force, rain, and wind. At sunrise and sunset, low light deepens every ridge until the mountains seem to glow from within. The beauty is overwhelming, but so is the scale. Deep gullies and narrow crests reduce every visitor to a temporary mark. Here, reality becomes more extravagant than fantasy. After Zhangye's explosion of colour, the frame settles into a gentler contradiction. Beneath the shifting dunes of Mingsha Mountain, Crescent Lake rests in the sand, clear, quiet, and almost impossible to keep alive. Wind reshapes the dunes and erases every track, yet the oasis remains, reflecting sunrise beside traditional buildings. Its survival depends on local terrain and underground water, but the balance is never secure. Sand is always moving. Wind is always searching for empty space to fill. Camel caravans cross the ridges in silhouette, passing above a lake that has resisted the desert for generations. Crescent Lake proves that the softest thing can also be the most stubborn survivor. At Leshan, 3 rivers turn beneath a colossal Buddha carved directly into the cliff. Boats shrink to specks below its calm gaze, while the statue's head rises into the forest and its feet rest near the water. Carving began during the Tang dynasty, inspired by the belief that the Buddha could calm the dangerous currents where the Min, Dadu, and Qingyi rivers meet. Generations contributed to a work none could finish alone. Visitors approach through cliffside stairs, where every turn reveals a new shift in scale. The face, the hands, the vast feet, the dark river below. The closer you come, the smaller you become. Leshan needs no voice. Its silence is enough to make every generation look up. Leshan is one colossal figure. Longmen is an entire cliff filled with faces. Along the Yi River, more than 100,000 Buddhist statues, niches and reliefs cover the limestone walls. Some tower over visitors, others are small enough to fit in a hand. Together they form a stone universe built across dynasties, especially from the Northern Wei through the Tang. Daylight reveals worn expressions and chisel marks. At night, lights pull the figures from darkness as if history has opened its eyes. But stone is not permanent. Weather, conflict, theft, and time have damaged countless carvings. Longmen survives inside that tension between devotion and disappearance, memory and loss. At Longmen, memory is carved into cliffs. In Kaiping, it rises from rice fields in the form of towers that seem to belong to China and Europe at the same time. Across the green countryside of Guangdong, Diaolou stands above bamboo groves, canals, villages, and flooded fields. Their arched windows, Roman columns, domes, balconies, and decorative rooftops appear almost out of place against the rural landscape. Yet every unusual detail tells the story of families who left China, encountered distant cultures, and returned carrying new ideas, wealth, ambition, and fear. These buildings were more than homes. They were watchtowers, shelters, and fortresses designed to protect entire families from bandits, floods, and periods of instability. Behind the elegant facades were thick walls, narrow openings, defensive upper floors, and rooms built for survival. Inside, imported decoration stands beside ancestral traditions. Western architecture meets Chinese family life, not as imitation, but as adaptation. Across today's peaceful fields, the dialogue remains like letters sent home from an age of migration. Proof that cultures do not simply meet at borders. Sometimes they cross oceans, return changed, and build a place where both can survive. Morning inside a Fujian Tulou begins in this courtyard, where an entire extended family wakes to a new day. Kitchen smoke rises beneath layers of tiled roofs. Children run along the wooden corridors while adults brew tea, lay out crops to dry, and call to one another from rooms that all face the shared courtyard. From the outside, Atule'er resembles a rammed earth fortress, with only one entrance and exterior windows appearing only on the upper floors. But inside, it contains an entire self-contained village. Each structure can house hundreds of people from the same clan. Families occupy rooms arranged vertically, while sharing the courtyard and communal living spaces. Among the 46 Tulou, recognized by UNESCO, the most unreal feature is not simply their enormous scale. It is the way defensive walls bring multiple generations together beneath a single roof. Deep in the mountains of Fujian, these fortresses are still kept warm by the sound of human life. At Basungkuo, the colour never remains still on the surface of the lake. It shifts from turquoise to deep blue as clouds drift across the snow-covered mountain slopes. Making the entire plateau appear wrapped in a layer of unreal light. In the middle of the water lies tiny Tashi Island, where Tsodzong Monastery rests beneath the forest canopy and strings of prayer flags. Basungkuo is more than a high-altitude lake in Ningxi. It is also considered sacred by the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. Pilgrims come here not only for the scenery, but also to circle the lake, pray and preserve legends passed down through generations. Blue water, dense forests, and spiritual devotion have transformed this place into a world that seems hidden from the rest of China. Hailuogou begins with a visual paradox. A massive glacier descends from Mount Gongga to an elevation of roughly 9,500 feet. Yet dense, humid, old-growth forests rise on both sides. Higher up, the ice breaks into white ice falls, forming strange crevasses, ice caves, and natural ice bridges. Farther below, steam from hot springs drifts through the freezing air, bringing ice and heat together inside the same valley. This is not a landscape created with visual effects. It is a place where a modern glacier reaches almost into a world of green vegetation, creating a scene so contradictory that two climates that should never meet appear to have been forced into the same frame. Mount Sigunyang does not appear as a single isolated summit. 4 granite massifs rise one after another along the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau, with a succession of peaks exceeding 16,400 feet behind them. Below, valleys, grasslands, and mountain forests unfold in vast layers. The name Four Sisters Mountain is connected to a legend among the Jiarong Tibetan community, telling of 4 young women who became mountains to protect their homeland. Because of this, the landscape is not only geologically magnificent. It also resembles a story carved directly into the horizon. Mount Sigunyang is also part of the Sichuan Giant Panda Sanctuaries, where dramatic mountain walls shelter a rare and precious ecosystem. Jade Dragon Snow Mountain is breathtaking for more than the wall of white peaks rising behind Lijiang's ancient town. For the Naxi people, it is also a sacred mountain, deeply present in the beliefs and worldview preserved through Dongba culture. Water from its slopes flows down toward the plains, feeding the streams and canals surrounding Lijiang. Beneath the mountain lie Dayan, Shuhei, and Baisha, the 3 sections of the UNESCO-recognized Old Town of Lijiang. Baisha alone preserves more than 40 murals inside its temples, some dating back to the early 13th century, and blending Buddhism, Taoism, and the cultures of the Naxi and Bai peoples. High above lies hard, frozen snow and ice. Far below, an ancient civilization continues to live through the water flowing from the mountain itself. Jiuzhaigou is so beautiful that the colours of its water can make visitors forget that this has long been a place where people lived. The name Jiuzhaigou means Valley of 9 Villages, referring to the Tibetan communities of the region. Its lakes are connected by waterfalls, mountain streams, and travertine terraces, forming a chain of landscapes that appears to move through layer after layer of colour. Several historic villages and temples remain within the heritage area, marked by prayer flags, wooden houses, and customs passed down through generations. Beneath the water, fallen trees remain clearly visible as though preserved outside the passage of time. Along the shore, traces of human life remind visitors that this is not an untouched painting without an owner. The combination of water, forest, mountains, and human history makes the valley look like a painting coloured far too vividly to be real, even though every part of it truly exists. In Libo, the forest does more than cover the mountains. It winds between thousands of cone-shaped limestone formations, swallowing the slopes beneath a green canopy that feels almost primordial. Despite its remote appearance, the Libo Karst is not completely separated from human history. Hidden among the forest-covered limestone peaks is the Xiaokekong Bridge, a 7-arch stone bridge constructed during the Qing dynasty in 1836. Today, its moss-covered stones are reflected in the green water, making it look like a relic slowly being consumed by the ancient forest. Water suddenly reappears throughout Xiaokekong, flowing through blue-green lakes, tiered waterfalls, and beneath an old stone bridge, sheltered by the trees. The most unreal quality lies in this balance. Sharp limestone formations still support a rare karst forest, where trees take root in soil so thin that their survival seems impossible. Libo does not resemble a scenic landscape designed for visitors. It is a part of China that still carries the appearance of the world before humans carved roads into it. Traveling deeper into the Tian Shan Grand Canyon, the landscape changes so quickly that the journey feels like crossing several different climate zones. Rugged rock walls have barely closed around the road before conifer forests open beneath snow-covered peaks. Beyond another curve, grasslands, cold streams, and seas of clouds take turns filling the entire view. The area near Urumqi contains nearly every landscape associated with Xinjiang except the desert. But it is the region's cultural history that gives the canyon its deeper meaning. These grasslands and mountain routes were connected to the seasonal movements of nomadic communities long before agriculture shaped the region. The farther the journey continues, the faster the scenery changes, making the Tian Shan feel like a hidden corridor, compressing many different versions of Xinjiang into a single valley. Tianmen Mountain carries its sense of unreality from the road all the way to the summit. Tongtian Avenue coils through 99 bends beneath the cliffs before 999 steps climb directly toward Tianmen Cave, a natural stone arch opening through the body of the mountain. But beyond that gateway lies another layer of history. Tianmen Temple was established during the Ming Dynasty and became an important Buddhist center in western Hunan. Among the ancient forests at the summit stand temple halls, courtyards, and a 7-story pagoda, in complete contrast to the glass walkways and deep ravines surrounding them. Higher still, cliffside paths and glass platforms place visitors directly above the abyss. Clouds can conceal the floor of the valley within minutes. When that happens, railings, cliffs, and the path beneath each step appear to drift through a field of white, turning the climb into a journey that seems to have left the earth entirely. Mount Hua Shan does not spread outward for visitors to admire at a relaxed pace. For centuries, it has been known as the Western Great Mountain, one of China's 5 great mountains, where sheer rock has long been connected to ritual, Taoism, and imperial authority. At the foot of the mountain stands the Zhangjiajie Temple, a complex once used by successive dynasties for ceremonies honoring the sacred peak. Along certain sections, climbers must grip iron chains, cross stairs carved directly into the rock, or walk across wooden planks fastened against the cliff face. On one side stands the mountain wall. On the other, the ground drops into open space. Even within this unforgiving terrain, Taoist temples, stone gateways, and pine trees, bent by the wind, continue to appear. That contrast is what makes Hua Shan so difficult to believe. People did not simply conquer a dangerous mountain, they transformed the edge of the abyss into a pilgrimage route that has endured for centuries. The roar of Huku arrives before the entire waterfall comes into view. The broad yellow river is suddenly compressed between two rocky banks, forcing its muddy yellow water through a narrow opening. The river plunges roughly 98 feet into the lower channel, churning foam, mist, and sediment into a trembling cloud above the canyon. The name Huku evokes the mouth of a kettle, because the entire river appears to be pouring through the neck of an enormous vessel. But no image can fully capture the weight of that moment. The sound swallows every human voice. One of China's greatest rivers suddenly contracts into a violent torrent, as though the entire plateau were being pulled into a crack in the earth. From a temple suspended above the clouds to caves cut into vertical cliffs, to a village once connected to the world by wooden ladders. From an eye boiling in the desert to an ancient city sleeping beneath a lake. Every place in this journey seems to ask the same question. How can something like this exist? The answer is not a single miracle. Some of these places were sculpted by wind, water, pressure, and time across millions of years. Others were raised through faith, fear, survival, and human ambition. And some appeared only when those forces met, when people stopped trying to overpower the landscape and instead learned to cling to cliffs, guide water down mountains, hide behind earthen walls, or transform entire rock faces into vessels of memory. In the end, these places are not extraordinary because they exist outside reality. They are extraordinary because They remind us how little of reality we truly understand. The world is still larger, stranger, harsher, and more imaginative than anything we could invent. And somewhere beyond the next ridge, another impossible place is still waiting to be seen.